heart of where innovation, money, and power collide in Silicon Valley and beyond. This is Bloomberg Technology with Caroline Hyde and Ed Ludlow.
Live from New York and San Francisco, this is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up, ASML shares sink further as its CEO addresses the chip equipment maker's shock booking slowdown.
We speak to Donald Trump about the future of Google. Despite criticism, the former president says it's important to keep the company intact.
Plus, next generation nuclear. More on Google and Amazon's latest investments in the carbon-free tech, crucial to their AI energy needs. But first, we've got to go to the chip sector, Ed.
Yeah, look, downward pressure on semiconductor stocks and chip equipment makers globally has been a story for the past 24 hours. In Asia, into the European session, and it now has continued into the United States. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index is actually higher, 0.4%. And actually, it's those two names, ASML, its US traded shares, but also note that its European trading shares are still under pressure, down 5%, continuing from the savage sell-off of Tuesday. Intel is interesting, right? Think about the story here. ASML is a chip equipment maker. Who buys chip making equipment? Well, Intel has that foundry business. So on the stocks, it makes a lot of sense that in the context of what we're worrying about, Intel might be lower. We need to understand what's happening here. So let's get more with Bloomberg's Chan Kok, who's out for us in Amsterdam. Let's start with something and clear something up. They put their earnings out early. That confused everyone. The CEO had to address it on the investor call. What did he say?
Yeah, so the results were scheduled for today, but the company published them early yesterday evening by mistake. They didn't say much, but they kind of blamed it on a technical error in a statement yesterday. And today, the CEO, Christophe Fouquet, apologized in an analyst call about the results. He said this was very unfortunate. They booked less than half of the orders that analysts estimated in the third quarter, and they also cut guidance for next year. So the results were an unpleasant surprise for analysts, and the market reaction was amplified by the company releasing the results a day earlier than scheduled.
Look, they're still sinking, even though the CEO has now spoken out. How did he explain the cut to guidance, the bookings dramatically under where analysts thought they would be?
So yeah, any weakness in ASML orders, as Ed mentioned earlier, often kind of signals struggles for the wider chip sector. They're the market leader for lithography machines in the world, so we can call it a bit of a chip bellwether. So ASML is citing a few delays in chip plant constructions around the world as an explanation of why the results were so bad. They also see weakening growth in China for their older machines due to a combination of softening demand and possibility of future export controls from Washington. Also keep in mind that Intel is, their biggest customer in the U.S. And it's cutting expenses in a restructuring push. So that's not helping the sentiment either. And then you have, delayed factories of Intel in Germany and Poland, while memory chip makers such as Samsung and SK Hynix are also being careful with their spending. So all of these spending cuts are affecting demand for ASML's chip-making machines.
Okay, if you're just joining us here on Bloomberg Technology, the world's most important maker of the machines that make chips had really ugly earnings and an ugly guidance. And what Chan was just explaining is kind of the backstory of earnings that came out early and were a surprise. You're looking at a two-day chart. 16% decline in Amsterdam yesterday, 5% decline today. And that anxiety, Caroline, was around the world. Asian session, European session, and we've chilled out a bit in the US session.
Yeah.
What we're worried about, Chan, is the investment cycle. What did ASML tell us about their own investment plans?
So, the big miss is obviously a signal that the chip industry's weakness is set to continue. They said well into 2025. And they did say that ASML will slow its short-term investment plans to match the market in today's call. Yeah, so basically we can also say that it's important to mention that the chip industry is experiencing some uneven times, right? Like in areas such as artificial intelligence accelerators, companies like NVIDIA can't keep up with the demand. But in other sectors, including automotive and industrial, it's a prolonged slump with customers cutting back orders because they have too much inventory. So ASML also mentioned the weakness in these industries.
Right. The CEO, I think the quote of the entire call was, "Today, without AI, the market would be very sad." Chan Koch, we thank you so much. Let's stay with semiconductors. Qualcomm said to wait until after the US elections to decide whether it will put in an offer for Intel. That's according to sources. For more, Bloomberg's Michelle Davis joins us for more. What are your sources saying?
So what we're hearing from sources is that this is going to be a very complicated deal if it does happen. The bar is very high to get something over the line, and there are huge implications on the political front. You know, this is not just your average M&A deal where you're just thinking about antitrust implications. There are also geopolitical ones, and so part of why Intel or Qualcomm would want to wait before bringing its formal offer is to have more clarity about what the antitrust landscape will look like, but also what the geopolitical one will look like. U.S.-China relations in particular are very important in the semiconductor industry and to a deal like this.
Michelle, the other part of the reporting is that sources told us Qualcomm sounded out regulators in China. What did you learn?
So what we're hearing is that this is something that would have been done very informally at this point. You know, China has not weighed in on what it thinks of a deal, but if Qualcomm does come forward with its formal offer, it will all hinge on those U.S.-China relations. The U.S. has made a vested, effort to make sure that it is a national player in chip making and that it is not as reliant on China. And China will have say over a deal like this. And so if those relations are problematic, then they could try to get in the way of it. So it's a big consideration.
Both Qualcomm and Intel declined to comment on our reporting. Bloomberg's Michelle Davis in New York, thank you very much. Investor focus on chips will continue after the bell because TSMC is going to report its earnings. Joanne Feeney, Advisors Capital Management Partner and Portfolio Manager, back on Bloomberg Technology. TSMC, wow, the timing, the accidental timing perhaps of ASML, but it is important to think about how quickly TSMC comes because it's the continuation of the story, right? The investment cycle into AI, frankly, and whether we continue to see investment in chip equipment, making equipment, and the chips themselves. Joanne.
Yeah, Ed, clearly TSMC has already released monthly numbers, so we have a good indication that their results are going to be solid and led by AI. The ASML news is more about, I think, China, particularly the pull forward in China for some of that equipment ahead of increasingly severe regulations against ASML shipping there. So 47% of ASML's business comes out of China, and that's going to have a big factor. The fact that ASML did acknowledge that AI continues to be strong, but elsewhere things are weaker, could reflect a number of things, starting with Intel and its plans to delay some of its and cancel some of its overseas projects, for example.
Let's just dig into how sad, as the CEO of ASML called it, the rest of the market is without AI.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard from plenty of the analog chip makers like Texas Instruments, for example, that autos is weakening and they don't know. They said, look, we don't know how soft this is going to become. It hasn't gotten severe yet, at least the last time we heard from them. But on the other hand, we also have heard that inventories have cleared in other end markets for semiconductors like industrials, and that we're starting to see a pickup there. So it's really hard to read ASML's comments about orders into the broader sort of away from the leading edge chip businesses like analog or microcontrollers. And that really is a sign, those companies, analog and microcontrollers, really tell us more about the broader economy. And we know the US economy is doing well. We know we're seeing recovery in industrial. So it's sort of hard to tell what ASML means, how much of it is China. How much of it is Intel pushing out its plans? So it's actually not as straightforward to read, I think, as some people think it is.
Let's give the nuance, therefore, because you're so good at doing that, Joanne, because this comes in the context of the breaking news that came on Monday that maybe we will see yet more and more, well, limitations on exports from the US and around the world to China. NVIDIA chips, for example. Why was NVIDIA so sold off yesterday if it's not around AI? How much of an importance is China-US to some of these valuations?
Yeah, NVIDIA shouldn't really have sold off on the ASML news yesterday, particularly because ASML said this has nothing to do with AI.
Right.
So I think what you're seeing is, NVIDIA is a big component of many ETFs. And so, when you sell out of those ETFs, the money flows out, everything in them gets sold. So I think that was a big driver for NVIDIA. And then also, you could see some folks saying, let me get a little bit less exposure to the semiconductor space overall, given how much it's rallied. That could just have been a decision made on diversification lines. But I think it's probably the ETFs that drove most of that.
Joanne, remind us which of these names you like and hold, which you don't, and why.
Yeah, so we're not involved in ASML, nor do we like Intel here because of its significant challenges. We do like NVIDIA. We continue to like a number of players in the AI space, including Broadcom. So, overall, I think that the economically exposed companies like Texas Instruments, we own that for clients. I own it myself. I think is a good place to be given how strong the U.S. economy is and how much of a recovery we are seeing in industrials. Intel, just faces huge challenges to catch up in manufacturing, and it just doesn't have the expertise to do foundry work. It's a big challenge for them to build a library that it can then build other types of chips for. So, the Qualcomm deal, if it goes through, we suspect will be more oriented towards Qualcomm trying to acquire the design side. And that could give Intel a massive cash infusion with which to save the manufacturing side and really make the investments that are necessary. But we think that's such a long way off and so uncertain that we don't think Intel is a place to be right now.
Joanne Feeney, so good to have you on Advisors Capital Management. We thank you. Now, coming up, what former President Trump had to say about tech regulation in a conversation with Bloomberg's editor-in-chief, John Micklethwaite. Ed, you're watching a stock related to this?
Yes, I am watching Trump Media and Technology, DJT, up almost 10%. There's a lot of writing about this on the terminal this morning, Caro. Some people say the Trump trade is the dollar and rates, right, tied to inflation. Others just say it's DJT. I would point out it was down significantly yesterday. It's up significantly today. There's volatility, but the timing's curious based on the fascinating interview you're about to hear. Please don't go anywhere. It is worth listening to. This is Bloomberg Technology.
Former President Donald Trump sat down with Bloomberg editor-in-chief John Micklethwaite on Tuesday for a wide-ranging interview focused on the economy. It included his support of tariffs, his views on the Federal Reserve, and the future of tech regulation. Here's what he had to say about the potential breakup of Google.
Google's got a lot of power. They're very bad to me, very, very bad to me. I mean, I can speak from that standpoint. They only have bad stories. In other words, if I have 20 good stories and 20 bad stories, and everyone's entitled to that, you'll only see the 20 bad stories. And I called the head of Google the other day, and I said, I'm getting a lot of good stories lately, but you don't find them in Google. I think it's a whole rigged deal. I think Google's rigged just like our government is rigged all over the place.
You would break them up, in other words?
I'd do something, but you have to have, look, I give them a lot of credit. They've become such a power, and you got to give them credit for that. How they became a power is, really the discussion. At the same time, it's a very dangerous thing because we want to have great companies. We don't want China to have these companies. Right now, China is afraid of Google. Right now, China is a very powerful, very smart group of people. I will tell you that from very personal experience.
There's an example of a Chinese tech company at the moment,
yeah.
TikTok.
Yeah.
You initially wanted to ban TikTok. Now you like it, apparently for some reason to do with Facebook.
Yeah.
There is a decision coming up, if you became president, its Chinese parent would have to sell it, I think it's by January the 19th. Would you force them to do that?
So I originally had it all done, and then I said to Congress, your decision. I said, I'm not going to, pull any strings, nothing. Your decision. You make it. But I had it all done. And I said, you make it. And they decided not to make it. I didn't care if they made it or not, because to me it was a flip of a coin. You have some real First Amendment problems. You have a lot of problems.
You just talked about Chinese technology, the need to defend against it.
Yeah.
TikTok and the threat people see to many kind of American children and things like that.
Yeah, but
why do you no longer see TikTok as a security threat?
I think it is a threat. Frankly, I think everything's a threat. There's nothing that's not a threat. But sometimes you have to fight through these threats. You can't just, like Google. I'm not a fan of Google. They treat me badly. But are you going to destroy the company by doing that? If you do that, are you going to destroy the company? What you can do without breaking it up is make sure that it's more fair.
That was former President Donald Trump with Bloomberg editor-in-chief John Micklethwait. Let's review the interview with Bloomberg's Mike Shepard, who leads our coverage of the intersection between tech and politics. And he stopped short of suggesting a breakup of Google. He was firmer on TikTok. What else did you learn about his potential policy platform going forward in tech?
I think one of the biggest takeaways from that is he is trying to maintain some flexibility. He tried to leave doors open on both coming down on Google, but also maybe finding some way to play both ends against the middle so that he doesn't have to go to really unraveling what he was hailing during the conversation with John as a great power. He really pointed to Google's market cloud as something in a way to also be envied and admired, and something that gives us a geopolitical advantage with China. We do have one signal from his camp that there could be a continuation of this vigorous antitrust enforcement, and that is his running mate, J.D. Vance. He has previously expressed a favorable view of how Lina Khan, in particular at the FTC, has pursued anti-competitive behavior, especially by big tech companies. So that could give us some sort of a clearer signal there.
Many are wondering about the signal around M&A as well. It feels as though, with an anti-competitive perspective, that might be tough.
I think you're right there. And also on TikTok, one of the stipulations, of course, under the new law is that the app be sold. And so the question is, would this really valuable asset enter the market someplace? And again, here in the interview, Trump is really playing both ends against the middle. He did not say for sure that he would enforce the new law that President Joe Biden signed at the end of April as part of a larger foreign aid bill. And likewise, in your conversation with our colleague Michelle Davis, we saw signs in other companies, Qualcomm in particular, that they have reservations about making any kind of a move before they know how this election is shaping up, because the environment could actually become very different when it comes to regulation.
Mike Shepard, we appreciate it. Thank you. Coming up, we're going to be talking to the head of digitization for Kyiv and Ukraine. He's at our City Lab Summit in Mexico City. This is Bloomberg Technology.
Day two of Bloomberg's City Lab Summit in Mexico City. Over 500 mayors and policymakers, including those from Kyiv, Ukraine. $4 million is being provided by Bloomberg Philanthropies for digital projects in Ukraine. Bloomberg Philanthropies is the philanthropic organization of Michael Bloomberg. Kyiv is a city using AI for everything from urban planning, predictive AI for transport, to infrastructure maintenance and even security. City of Kyiv, Ukraine advisor to the mayor and head of digitalization, Oleg Polivinko, joins us now. Good morning to you. What is it you hope to achieve for your city with all of your peers there in attendance?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for hosting me. Definitely Ukraine now and the city of the Kyiv in the most challengeable time. And we're doing our best and using digitalization to help our residents achieve services from the city and use it in convenient and comfortable way.
Just how difficult is it to implement technological innovation at this moment in a moment of war?
First of all, we are having our super app, which downloaded more than 3.9 million users, in case that we have 3.6 residents. Of course, it's not all residents downloaded this super app, but the refugees from other regions who came in the Kiev already downloaded it. The main goal of this application is provide critical notification to our users to help them find bomb shelters, heating point, any help and services what they need in the city when they arrive there, when they live there, because we're facing the electricity outrange, and in this moment citizens have to know how to survive in the city. So they use our application for that.
I can imagine the mental health support that you're able to give, the information that you're able to give. What about future investment? Where are you allocating? Is it all about the help of generative AI within these super apps to be some help within mental health discussions? Is it about more logistical information? What are you talking about?
Now that functionality, what we already providing, it's about transportation, it's about safety, civil defense function. But you understand that the residents of the city having PTSR because twice per day the missile attack alarms, and they are really tired about all of that. That's why, thanks to Bloomberg Philanthropies, we are now developing the project in mental health area, which helps test yourself in the application, and after that provide additional recommendations and services which helps you improve your mental health. And additional AI technology helps us to make services and provide services for residents more efficiency. This is like call center, providing additional services, making recommendations.
Oleg, very quickly, which area of your city do you need to modernize the most?
Excuse me?
Which area of your city do you need to modernize first?
This is the areas what we are covering. This is a civil defense, this is a transportation, this is self-testing and self-improvement of the residents.
Right. Oleg, it's so good to have some of your time. The Kyiv advisor to the mayor and head of digitalization, Oleg Bolovinko. Coming up, how AST Space Mobile is taking on SpaceX to offer a cellular broadband network from space. We're going to be talking to the company's president. This is Bloomberg Technology. Welcome back to Bloomberg Technology. I'm Caroline Hyde in New York.
And I'm Ed Ludlow in San Francisco.
Quick check on these markets, Ed, because we're still trying to digest the shock announcement earnings from ASML, chip equipment maker, which really managed to pummel some of the chip sector yesterday. Today, we see a little bit of a reprieve. We're only off by about 0.1%. We're seeming to be flip-flopping between gains and losses on the Nasdaq 100 more broadly, off by 0.1%, but drill into some of the individual movers, because despite the CEO now speaking out, coming out to investors to explain the numbers, ASML is still under pressure. Let's just move on to see what it's doing in terms of its ADRs, where it are traded in the United States. We've seen ASML under some pressure. We're currently off by more than 5%. Interestingly, though, the chip sector more broadly is bouncing back. Nvidia in the green, because, look, this isn't an AI growth story. Many at pains to explain that actually AI really remains the bright spot. The sad spot is perhaps the consumer tech area, particularly PC volume, smartphone. That is why perhaps we see Apple under pressure by 1.4%, Ed.
OK, some news from the aerospace sector. Airbus is joining Boeing in cost-cutting measures. The European plane maker will cut up to 2,500 jobs in its defence and space division. That's equivalent to about 7% of its entire workforce. The company's decided that it needs to step up in order to adapt to what it called an increasingly difficult space market. Caro.
Let's just stick with space, because AST Space Mobile is building the first and only cellular broadband network from space. It's working with the giants like AT&T, Google, Verizon, and more. And that makes it the biggest competitor to SpaceX in the direct-to-cell business. Let's discuss all of this with President Scott Wisniewski, who joins us in the studio. And Scott, many are trying to work out how realistic you've got satellites into space. Did that on September the 12th. But there are more to be built, plenty more. How are you on this journey?
Well, we've been at this, and thank you for having us, but we've been at this for about 7 years now. Our network is purpose-built just for the space-based cellular broadband opportunity, and it's purpose-built for the operators. So we've been working with many of these operators for over 5 years now, and you mentioned a few. We have many more abroad as well. And so for us, the first step was to launch these first 5 commercial satellites. We'll have more to come starting in Q1 2025. And our goal is to get about 45 to 60 in the US in order to provide 24/7 commercial service to your phone with no modification to your phone.
Scott, thanks for coming on Bloomberg Technology. Your ability to serve the world directly correlates to this constellation in orbit, right? So from that perspective, just explain to us the timeline for expansion, but your ability to serve those markets on Earth.
Right. Well, we importantly are a low Earth orbit network, which, like you said, means we're global. And that's a problem in that you need many satellites, but once you're operational, you can service many markets. And that's why we've put together this network of 45 plus partnerships globally with the mobile network operators who cover collectively over 2.8 billion subscribers. So that network is something that we want to build quickly. Our partners want to build quickly. It's a service we want to bring to market. And we're going to start doing beta service with these first 5 satellites, 30 plus minutes a day, as soon as we commission the satellites here in orbit. So from there, we're vertically integrated, which we think is very important for what we're doing. We're based in Texas. We have our key hubs here in the United States, in addition to being publicly traded and based here. And so for us, getting that factory at full speed, we believe our capacity is up to 6 satellites a month, and these are big satellites, very specialized for this application. We're going to be building those very rapidly. We've announced that we're in planning production for the next 17, and we need to get to that 45 to 60 number as soon as we can.
So that is interesting. Caroline and I were at Rocket Lab Friday for a special show. And what I found so fascinating about that is that their limiting factor is not their ability to build rockets and launch. It's the customers sending things up. So what is your limiting factor? It sounds like you can build. Is it your launch provider? What's kind of the limit on growth?
Yeah, for us, again, going back to being vertically integrated, we control most of the inputs to the supply chain and manufacturing. So for us, we've had a lot of success so far this year raising capital. We control the manufacturing and supply chain. And we have great partners, some of which you just put up on the screen. So we believe that the ball is largely in our court, still a lot to work through, but we control most of the inputs of production and the ability to deliver the service, and we're in a race to get it up to orbit as soon as possible.
Talking of capital that you've managed to raise, I mean, you're potentially going to sell more stock. We're up 300% year to date. You have been the best performing Russell 2000 name. Record highs, 1,300% up from its previous low, but 30% of the outstanding shares are shorted. What do you say to those shorts who are worried about the ability to make this discussion a reality?
Right. Well, we think what we have is very highly differentiated technology and excellent partners that we've been able to finance.
Like SpaceX that you're competing against.
Yes, exactly. So what we're doing is very different. Cellular broadband from space is very different from SOS or text. So we think that we're very useful to the operators who have partnered with us. We're going to provide a service that's very important to the consumer. You know, when our phone doesn't work, it weighs very heavy in our pocket. So we think that the demand for our service is very significant, and we're pushing as fast as we can. Our stock has performed well on the back of, I think, our success this year. But for us, we have to produce for our shareholders and for our customers, and we're very eager to do that, as we discussed. On the capital side, we've announced success with the U.S. government as a customer, and prepayments with many of our top providers, customers who will get initial access to our network. So for us, the stock has performed well, but we've said no offerings in 2025 and 2024, and we plan to stick with that.
Scott, I'm sorry, I'm pushing my luck with time, but the team know that I'm excited about this area. Explain how it works from a revenue split perspective. So if I use my phone in my pocket, you're partnering with the carrier, AT&T. It's your constellation and your technology, but you need to kind of split who's making money in the transaction. Explain that very quickly, please.
Well, our organizing principle from the beginning has been a revenue share. So we provide a service that's unique. It's supplemental to the coverage that our partners provide, and it's a service that will be provided through that partner. So for us, our organizing principle has been revenue share with all of our customers. There's many ways to go to market that are very interesting and will be flexible by market, but at its core, we want to drive new revenue, new growth, help our customers reduce churn by making their service more valuable, and in that process, we share the revenue.
Come on, when you hit those targets, AST Space Mobile President Scott Wisniewski, we thank you for your time. Ed, what have we got coming up?
Yeah, some more news in Talking Tech. First up, check out this terminal chart. ASML has officially lost its place as Europe's most valuable tech company to software firm SAP. That's, of course, after a guidance cut sent the Dutch chip makers' shares plunging. As mentioned earlier, ASML lost about $65 billion in market cap in that session, also booked only about half the orders that analysts were expecting in Q3. Plus, Airbnb's launched a new feature that allows homeowners to hire fellow hosts to manage their rentals. The idea for hosts to have a new resource to furnish their home, manage bookings, and coordinate guest logistics. Airbnb hopes the new feature will help boost listings. And Paramount's 3 co-CEOs will get paid even if they're not the boss. According to a regulatory filing, they will receive their improved annual cash bonuses even if they're replaced. Paramount's in the process of merging with Skydance Media, and a new CEO is expected to be named when the deal closes in the first half of next year. Karen.
Coming up, we're going to be talking another of your favorites, Ed. Jason Chapman, Convoy, co-founder and managing partner, on the state of the gaming industry and investments. This is Bloomberg Technology. This is Bloomberg Technology, and you are looking at a live shot of the principal room. Check out the Bloomberg Technology podcast. You can find it on the terminal, as well as online on Apple, Spotify, and iHeart. This is Bloomberg.
Convoy estimates the gaming market size to reach $188 billion this year, with VC funding in games reaching $517 million so far. For more on that landscape, including the impact of AI, Convoy co-founder and managing partner Jason Chapman joins us now. I find that so interesting. We can get into the health of this industry a little bit, but the sheer size of the overall industry, the size, 188, why is that important?
I mean, thank you, Ed. Thank you, Caroline, for having me. Yes, gaming is the most significant portion of the entertainment market today, right? We're larger than linear TV. We're larger than OTT. We're larger than movies, music. In many cases, some of those industries combined. Gaming has continued to grow. It's proven that it's recession resilient. It's been tested and tried in just about every way, shape, and form. And yes, we're really pleased to see that funding is normalized. The last 6 quarters, we're seeing roughly around $500 to $600 million invested on a quarterly basis into games. We see no reason that will stop. And that paired with interest rates driving down, open up the IPO markets, pretty bullish on a 2025 for games.
Jason, given the size, the sheer scale of the overall industry, how much of a chunk of change does it get in the VC area? Is it synonymous to the extent of its size in entertainment broadly?
Yes. So if you look at larger venture, there's about $50 to $60 billion invested a quarter. We're seeing about $500 to $600 million of that in games. So it is a significant portion. It's also a lot more stable. I think you see a lot less flash in the pans as you're seeing right now. A couple years ago in Web3, or this year you're seeing in AI. Gaming is kind of steady state, and so we're very pleased to see that. We're expecting to see continued interest this rounding out this year and also leading into 2025.
I want to just try out if we can get all 3 of us on screen for a moment. Because,
let's do it.
Ed, we had such a fun conversation last week, Thursday. We're in LA. We're discussing sort of the industry more broadly when it comes to gaming. And we had a legend from Blizzard join the show. He's got a new studio. But there is still a lot to sort of focus on when it comes to the development of games and how hard it is.
Right.
Yes.
You're talking about Mike Morhaime, and last night I was at an event with Jason Schreier with loads of developers in the room. And the reason that I'm so fixated on Jason's 188 billion number is it's getting bigger. But all the people in that room, Jason, who were developers, would tell you that they're suffering. Layoffs at video game publishers and developers are increasing. The crunch, you know exactly what that is more real than ever. So why is the industry getting bigger?
I mean, I think it's getting bigger because people continue to want to spend time in interactive environments. You know, if you look at younger generations, they're spending less and less time watching TV, which is passive. They want to be in an environment that they can interact and impact. And so that's absolutely true. Why is there the crunch in games? People talk about this a lot, is because, look, users are very demanding. We expect a lot from our games. We've been spoiled over the years. We have great creatives producing high quality content that we get to enjoy on a daily and weekly basis. And that's never going to stop. I think you're talking about the layoffs. Yes, we've seen about 13,000 jobs lost in the games industry that we've tracked from the public companies. That's likely a lot higher if you include private companies. We expect that we'll see more. And I think that's a healthy thing for the industry. I know that's really hard to say and hard to hear, but we overhired during the boom era. We're going through a right sizing now, and it's really encouraging to see that even in that right sizing, our industry continues to thrive and to grow. And that is an encouraging reality, I think, for those in the games, and one that we should all remember.
What's not healthy at the moment is child safety. And look, I've got a 7-year-old at home who is desperate to be on Roblox and on Minecraft. Instead, I had him books about it because I've got to get my safety precautions in gear, understand how I make him safe online before I let him do it. How are you thinking about what's happening versus TikTok, the child safety bill, and also how that embroils things like Roblox?
As kids spend more and more time online, and I have a lot of empathy for this as a parent myself, you have to take that very seriously in every way, shape, and form, right? So wherever this is and wherever it is, that's where you need to protect the kids. And so when we're looking at this, you know, we think about this in a lot of different ways, and you know, every single gaming firm has to reconcile that if you command a kid's time, you're taking responsibility in sort of digital daycare. We've invested pretty heavily in this space. One of our investments is KID, which is actually tackling this issue straight on, which is trying to promote and ensure that the companies are compliant with different regulations across the globe. This is one of the huge challenges for games companies. Again, I have a lot of empathy for them. When you release a game in over 100 countries. Trying to stay compliant and ensure that every kid is safe according to the laws is very difficult, and that's why we made this investment early on, and they've continued to thrive. I think what you're highlighting too, Caroline, with Roblox, obviously the Hindenburg report that came out was pretty intense with their allegations, I'd say, towards kind of two sides of the house. One is child safety, the other one is kind of their financial metrics. I'll hone in on the child safety metrics for a second.
Briefly, yeah.
They have to take this very seriously. It's something they have to look into, but until proven otherwise, I think that Roblox has proven to be a best-in-class digital property. I would like to think that they can handle these issues head-on.
Jason Chapman of Convoy, thank you. Coming up, details on Google's latest nuclear investments, meant to stay on top of the growing energy needs of AI. This is Bloomberg Technology. Amazon says it's teaming with financier Ken Griffin to make a $500 million investment in small nuclear reactors. Here's what AWS CEO Matt Garman said earlier today.
As the world continues to modernize, continues to digitize, as we think about the power of generative AI, all of these capabilities are leading to the demands of more power. So nuclear is an incredibly important part of reaching that carbon zero goal for us.
We'll hear more from Matt Garman tomorrow, where he joins us right here on Bloomberg Technology. Okay, Amazon's not the only one. Google is going nuclear. The company says it's investing in the development of several small nuclear power reactors across the United States. It hopes the deal with Kairos Power will help it meet the growing need for electricity to fuel AI. Here now, Michael Terrell, Senior Director of Energy and Climate at Google. And I guess that the best starting point, because it's well documented the terms of the deal, SMRs and what they are, is whether it meaningfully changes the trajectory of meeting your power needs, but also your targets for climate as well.
Well, the world needs more carbon-free energy, and this agreement that we signed with Kairos is an important milestone in what's been a 15-year journey at Google to make the transition to clean energy. It's our first nuclear energy deal, and we feel that nuclear is a very important technology for going carbon-free for offices, data centers, communities where we operate, because it's an always-on carbon-free energy resource.
I'm very interested in the technology. You know I am. But I'm also interested in the economics and the math. Are you able to say, even if it's an estimate, kind of where you see the dollar per megawatt hour being by 2030, 2035, when these come online?
Well, I can't talk about the specifics of this deal, but what's interesting about it is we didn't do a deal for just one reactor.
True.
It's actually for a series of reactors, what we call an order book. And that repeatability helps to drive down costs and helps to take the technology to scale faster.
Your focus is eliminating carbon emissions by 2030. Does this get you there, Michael?
That's right, Caroline. We have a goal as a company to be 24/7 carbon-free in everywhere we operate, in every location, every hour of the day. And it's a huge challenge. We've actually been in this space for 15 years in terms of doing wind and solar, large deals. We're one of the largest corporate purchasers of wind and solar on the planet. We've signed over 100 deals. But we know that to get to carbon-free 24 hours a day, we're going to need more technologies than just wind and solar. The wind doesn't blow all the time. The sun doesn't shine all the time. And what's great about technologies like advanced nuclear is that they provide a more always-on resource. So it's a very big part of our path to 24/7 carbon-free energy.
But it takes time. And right now, AI, generative AI, the training of it is in the here and now. Do you have the energy infrastructure necessary to satisfy that demand?
Yes, we do, and it's why we're making big bets like we are on nuclear, but we're also still betting big on wind and solar and storage. We signed over 4 gigawatts of deals just last year, the most we've ever signed in a single year. And now we're inking new agreements with utilities to develop a portfolio of technologies that can meet our 24/7 carbon-free needs. So we're both betting short-term and long-term.
I know you won't give me a dollar per megawatt hour figure, but you do expect the SMRs to be competitive and of value versus solar and wind and the other technologies you outlined?
Absolutely, Ed. We wouldn't do this if it didn't make sense for our business. And, you know, one of the things that I think we ought to really think about in how we value these approaches is the always-on nature of nuclear technology.
Hours.
And it delivers a lot of value, and you can put it anywhere. And so that, again, is very good for the business.
But can I just jump in really quick and ask you, your job is really interesting because you are responsible for the energy needs. If you're not calculating the cost per megawatt hour, do you have a clear figure in your head about the energy need over a 5-year or 10-year time horizon?
Yeah. Well, we've been doing this for, like I said, 15 years. We have a good sense of how our demand is going to grow. We have a good sense of the portfolio of resources that we need. And we're making decisions that make sense for the business and make sense for our growth as a company. So we feel we're on a good path.
Look, it's busy out there in nuclear. Never have we talked about it more. And the Amazon deal, for example. Look, these are companies that we've not really heard of. Kairos Power, the private X Energy. Are there enough startups, enough companies building what you need right now to partner with?
You know, it reminds me of the early days of wind and solar. We were one of the pioneers in signing corporate PPA agreements to buy these technologies. And there were not a lot of players in the early days of those as well. But now, with this new set of technologies that we're going to need to get to 24/7 carbon-free energy, it's not just nuclear, it's enhanced geothermal, it's long-duration storage. And so it's great to see others getting in the game. The more the merrier. I'd like to see 100 more companies doing nuclear deals from what we've seen this week.
We're running out of time, but so you will look at geothermal. And can you give us a proportion of what you see the contribution of nuclear, geothermal and solar?
Yeah, actually, geothermal was one of the first advanced energy deals that we did. We signed a deal in 2021 to do a project in Nevada. It's now scaled to a deal that's 25 times bigger than that original project. So we've got experience in dealing with these new technologies, and we're super excited about the potential for nuclear.
Michael Terrell, Senior Director of Energy and Climate at Google. Really appreciate you joining us here on Bloomberg Technology. Caro.
What a wide-ranging edition of Bloomberg Technology. We've done it all from space to power to ASML. Still need to track that.
Yeah, and keep your eye on the chip sector throughout the day because 24 hours, it's been a bit of a wild ride. Recap on the podcast. You know where to find it on all the Bloomberg platforms, as well as online on Apple, Spotify and iHeart. Thank you, New York team, and everyone here in SF. This is Bloomberg Technology.